Hey everybody, this is Strategywizard, and today I'm going to do another video where I'm talking about my opinion versus the opinion of Board Game Geek that disagrees with me. In this case, we're doing War of the Rings 2nd Edition. Just posted my review of that a few days ago, and I gave it a 7 out of 10. Now, that's not just loving it, but I still really like it. Technically, I'm below the average on Board Game Geek, but still I'm going to be talking about the people who don't like it because I do really enjoy the game. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's see, we're going to look at number one. One star and number one. Exact opposite. These are the lowest. 1-star ratings here. Here's what some people say. We got, this game is too long. That's all he says. That's not really that fair in my opinion. I mean, there's a lot of games that are too long, but just because it's long does not mean it's bad. Don't give a game a bad rating just because it's too long. This guy says, placeholder rating, because I feel new games need their ratings weighted in place until 10,000 reviews. Really? Let's see, how many reviews are there now on this game? There's 7.8 thousand ratings. So, okay, well, I'll give him this much. It hasn't gotten to 10,000 yet, so he's being accurate, but that's not really fair because you're purposely hurting it just for the sake of hurting it. I mean, as if his one-star review is going to make a difference anyway. It's not. Oh gosh, that's not a reason to do it. I'm sorry. I just can't stand it when people, they rate a game badly just because other people they think are blowing it out of proportion or they're being too fanboyish. That's not a reason to rate a game bad. That means they like it that much. Whether or not it deserves it doesn't matter. They like it that much and they're entitled to their opinion. Okay, this guy says, so hard to put it on the table. So hard to put it on the table. Why is that a reason to give it 1 star? That's not a reason to give it 1 star. That's not even a reason to even modify the rating, in my opinion. The game is the game. It's either really good or it's not. Whether or not you get to, by that logic, I would have to rate any game that takes 6 players or something like the Resistance. I almost never have that many players available, but that doesn't mean I should rate it poorly just because I can't ever play it because I don't have enough players. Okay, so 2nd edition is not a separate game, just a few updates. That's also not a reason to give it 1 star. This guy says, not a valid separate game entry. Okay, well, we can see the 1 stars have basically no real legs to stand on. Let's go to 2 stars. Okay, we have not very many that actually give comments. There's plenty of, there's 32 total, but, and I'm only looking for the ones that have comments. There's flip a coin to decide the winner. Annoying. Okay, now I will give this person a tiny bit of credit. Yes, there's a lot of luck involved, but it's not, and I even made a comment about that in my review. That's one of the things that keeps me from rating it higher, is there is a little too much luck involved, but it's not as extreme as this guy saying. It's not you flip a coin. There's a lot that you can do to control your destiny in this game. There's still a lot of luck, but there's also a lot of control with the cards that you choose to play, where you choose to move your units, and all that kind of stuff. So, and yes, you're rolling dice even in your actions, but again, like I said in my review, the action dice, it's very rare that you roll a bunch of dice that you just can't do anything with. Usually you're happy with your roll because there's so many things you want to do, you can't do them all anyway, so at least you just use what you have to do the best you can. Okay, this guy says, too much luck for a 4-hour game. I will agree with him there. It's not worth giving a 2-star review over, in my opinion, but I agree with him that it is a little too much luck for my taste for such a long game. Is it 4 hours? It could take that long, but I don't think it would have to take that long. Far too many rules and downtime. Probably an exciting experience for Lord of the Rings fans, but the theme makes me yawn. Definitely not worthy of such a high ranking when there are numerous games that are more fun. Now, I am a Lord of the Rings fan. I'm not a Lord of the Rings fanatic. Now, I will agree with him. Theme makes a difference here. If you like Lord of the Rings, you're more likely to like this because you're going to get into the characters. You're going to get into the plot that you're developing as you proceed in the game, even though there's not really any story elements, but you know that you are advancing essentially the story of Lord of the Rings as you play. And gosh, this guy, yeah, if you don't like the theme at all, if it makes you yawn, that will take away something from this game because it's very rich in theme. So a lot of the game revolves around the theme. I can't necessarily disagree with him there then. He says far too many rules in downtime. There are a lot of rules, and it's a little overwhelming. Downtime, I mean, it's a two-player game. I mean, there is downtime, but at the same time, this is one of those games where I think, especially because it's two-player, you don't mind the downtime so much because you're involved in paying attention to what your opponent's doing. You're interested. What are they actually doing to you? And because you need to pay attention to that for your turn. So I don't think that's as big of a deal. And he says definitely not worthy of such a high ranking when there are numerous games that are more fun. Well, that's purely opinion, so saying that doesn't really add anything to his argument. So somewhat I can understand why he gives it a 2-star, though. I think that's still a little extreme. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to 3. Let's go to the ones that have comments. Okay, this is a big one. Whoa, you better be a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and even more important, a fan of long war games. While I can be on board with the Lord of the Rings stuff, the length and especially the intensive learning curve, we played for 3 hours and hardly moved along at all. I think he might have misworded that sentence. I think he meant to add in there that bothered him. Well, okay, I understand that. The length and the learning curve, yeah, it can be challenging. Although to go 3 hours and barely move along, that's probably because of the learning curve. Yeah, you really do need to get past a play or two to be able to really get in a rhythm. And if that's a barrier for you, then yeah, you probably don't want this game, because it does take a lot to get in the groove and remember all the little nitpicky rules and everything. But he continues, let's see, you have to look up everything. Some people online say you should just keep going. You don't need to understand everything, but I found it hard to make any decisions if I didn't know what is going on and what the consequences are. Okay, I can agree with that. I mean, you do want to know as much as possible, but at the same time, it might, what those other people are saying apparently is probably true. If you at least know the meat of it, it probably is worth it to just go through a game so you just know the basic game and then go back and pick up on those nitpicky rules. But even if I could muster up the patience to learn this, I don't think I would like it. The dice combat system is bad. It is not better than your outdated Risk combat, and that is at least quick. Now, I disagree with him there right now. It is better than Risk, in my opinion, for one humongous reason. In Risk, whenever the defender rolls his dice, if he rolls all 6s, you cannot do anything. You just lose to them on that round. If they just keep on rolling 6s, you can do nothing. The attacker has the disadvantage always, because if you don't have stuff to exceed what they do, you just don't do any damage. At least in here, your rolls are separate. If you get 5s and 6s, you get a hit. If they get 5s and 6s, they get a hit. In my opinion, that's automatically way better than Risk, because it's very frustrating as the attacker, because I have been here, played with my brother. You're the attacker, you have tons of units, you roll and you get 6s. You're like, great, your opponent rolls, they get 6s as the defender. And you go, well, there goes a completely wasted round, let's try it again. And you just keep losing units because the other person keeps on getting these good rolls. That is very frustrating, so I cannot agree with him here. He says, it seems as if no matter what you strategized and whatever cards you played, the dice just decide and anything else doesn't matter. I disagree with him there. You do have, I think, more control than he thinks. He probably just had a really bad game. Don't get me wrong, you could have really bad games where the dice just don't go in your favor, and that's something that if you don't like dice war games, then you know that you wouldn't like that, so that's pretty straightforward. He says, I hate that mechanic. Okay, I understand some people hate that. I'm not going to say he's wrong. He says, and when you pair this with endless lengthiness that boils down to whether you can roll a 5 or a 6, I am a bit frustrated, to be honest. Okay, I understand. I'm not going to argue with him there. Additionally, the looks of the game are a bit disappointing. Lots of minions and a cool map board, but I have seen better looking games and similar games that pull off a better design. I know there is love for this game, but I feel that comes from a very specific type of gamer. Love theme, love immersion, want to get lost in Lord of the Rings for hours and more hours while you occasionally roll battle dice, and I am not that type. Okay, well, I understand that. Overall, I understand where he's coming from. If you're not into Lord of the Rings, you don't like rolling dice for combat and all that kind of thing, then yeah, this is not your kind of game. He gave it 2.5. Is that worthy? Maybe. Maybe if you really feel that way, you probably would really not like it. This guy says, only fun for the evil players. Very limited possibilities for the good guys. Too long for the things it offers. I'm going to agree with him on the part about it is more fun to me to play as the bad guys, but my brother likes to play as the good guys, and he really enjoys it. So to say that it's only good for the bad guys, excuse me, I don't agree with that. It's just different. Some people will like it, some people won't. It's just different. So not so much in agreement there. This guy says, "Wah, so bad." Okay, I guess it's just not for me. I'm not a huge fan of games with cards that do random garbage. I'm less a fan of games where said cards are the dominant factor, especially in a game with this scope. I'm less a fan of games where said cards are the dominant factor. I'm not a huge fan of games with cards that do random stuff. Okay, to me, that is actually one of the coolest things about it. I mean, the cards, there's an incentive to want to play cards, to get new cards, but you also want to save cards, and that hand management, to me, is an interesting, integral part of the gameplay. So I don't agree with him there, but if you don't like it, you don't like it. But is that a reason to give it a 3? Oh, and he says it's so bad, I just don't understand. Hey, this guy rates it 3. He says this is either 5 or 8. I don't know what he means by that. He says, played it once and didn't quite finish. I really like that there is art and no movie shots. I think in games like these, it's fun to see how the designers worked various events into the game. The core game is basically Risk with Chrome, so the battles aren't very interesting. I think this would work much better as CDG. I apologize, I don't know what CDG means. Maybe someone else does and they can leave it in the comments. Maybe I'm missing something obvious here. But he says that the battles aren't interesting, and it's basically Risk with Chrome. I beg to differ a little bit here because, yeah, it's dice combat, but again, as I said earlier, the dice combat is better than in Risk, and whenever it comes to the card play, that adds a pretty big element that puts it way above Risk. So I don't agree with him there. The last 3, he says, too many rules and far too many exceptions to the rules. In the end, there's a lot of luck in the game, and that makes it frustrating and unnecessary with that load of rules and long gameplay. I agree with his frustration about that, but I don't think it's worth giving it 3 stars. Now, is that because I'm biased? Because I like Lord of the Rings? Maybe. But I mean, to give a game 3 stars out of 10 whenever we're talking about, I mean, it's got amazing miniatures. It's got great artwork. It's got a grand design. Just because you don't like those key mechanics, I just don't think that's a reason to give a game that low of a score. Maybe I'm wrong. Y'all let me know. I'm fixing to go ahead and wrap this video up, but I just want to look at to see if there's any 4s that are worth talking about real quick. Let's see. That might add something we haven't already seen. I really don't like games where you draw cards that have no effect or only in very specific situations. It is true that maybe some of the event portions, the cards have 2 parts. There's the attack ability, and there's a special ability that you can play just in your turn, or maybe even on another player's turn. I can't remember if any do that, but the point is, yeah, you might have some where you don't get to have an effect on one, but on the other half, you should be able to do something. So I don't know if I agree with that. This guy says, dice emphasize drama at the expense of balance. I can't justify sitting down to a game that is so convoluted that it takes 2 to 3 hours to play to find out if I enjoy it or not. So unless I have an extremely well-versed teacher and I'm trapped in a room with said person in this game and nothing else to do, I'd be hard-pressed to try it. Why did you give it 4 stars then? That's not a reason to give it 4 stars. Okay, so the next one, another 4-star. So now we have separate entries for War of the Ring First Edition, War of the Ring Second Edition, and War of the Ring Special Edition? Seriously? Again, not a reason to give it 4. Why do people do this? I don't understand. Why would you give it a rating and that's your comment? I don't know. Okay, this guy says, it is too complex for me. The rulebook is the worst I have seen. I am a fan of Lord of the Rings, and I wanted to like it, but it is too long, difficult to explain due to the rulebook, and too much text dependent. Setup is painful, and there is no difference among unit types, so for me, it's a no-sense war game. Interesting. What I don't like is the cards that change the rules and make it difficult to learn. However, components are beautiful. It's immersive. It immerses you in the Tolkien world. Definitely a gamer's game. Too much time for what it delivers. Well, some of what he says I agree with, as we've talked about before, so I'm not really going to address his that much other than, yeah, it's long, and the rulebook I don't think is just that bad as he's saying, but yeah, it is long, it's complex, but and somewhat legitimate. I'm not gonna badger him too much. War of the Ring is a sprawling game, massive in scope, time commitment, board size, and number of components. It truly does evoke the feel of Tolkien's saga, and despite my love for the books, this game is not for me. Beyond the 3 to 5 hour play duration, there are several other things about War of the Ring that irk me. Clunky mechanics require players to keep the rulebook handy for constant rule clarifications. Limited figurine color palette makes factions of the same player's forces hard to differentiate. Dependency on dice results and card draws for actions can railroad a player's choices, making strategizing difficult, especially the Free People's player who has less dice. Dice rolling for combat results is no better than Risk. And finally, I find the game just too darn stressful. Despite my issues with it, I can tell War of the Ring would be right up some people's alley, but personally, I will stick with Lord of the Rings Confrontation for my Middle-earth fix. I agree with him on several levels. In fact, most of what he says, I think, is at least somewhat accurate. So I'm not. This is a fair. If you agree or think on this guy's terms, being long, the rules, clarifications, requirement. Yeah, there's a lot of rules, and it can be hard to remember them all. And yeah, there's blue, gray, and red. And as far as the miniatures colors, blue for the good guys, red for the bad guys. All leaders are gray. Yeah, you sometimes have to look a little closely to pay attention to who's who. That's true if you don't want to paint them. And dependency on dice results and card draws for actions can railroad a player's choices. Yes, that is very true. But at the same time, you still usually have, even in the choices that it railroads you into, though, you have choices. For example, if you have the muster action die, you can choose where you muster troops. If you want to try to recruit a leader or one of the characters. Or in the case of the army action die, yeah, if you roll an army action die, you can only do army actions with it, but you can choose which armies you move. So even whenever you get, XYZ die results, you can still have flexibility within that to decide what you want to do with those dice. So it's not totally limiting. You still have options. But again, and the one thing I disagree with again, dice rolling for combat results is no better than Risk. It is better than Risk, in my opinion. Maybe if anyone who's watching disagrees with me, please tell me in the comments. These people keep on saying it's just like Risk, but it's so much better whenever you're not dependent on what the defender rolls. At least I can get hits as the attacker, even if the defender rolls all sixes. At least I can still get hits too. To me, that makes it leagues better than Risk. But maybe other people disagree. Or these people disagree. Either they don't remember how Risk works, or that distinction does not mean much to them. But to me, that's a huge difference. I'll read these last two, and then I'll be done. A lot of effort to put into a game where the most experienced player inevitably wins by pulling some weasel move. From BGG description, quote, game balance and integrity issues have been exploited by experienced players, end quote. Lovely. Okay, now this guy is saying the exact opposite of what other people have said. Other people have said it's too luck-based, which to a certain extent I agree. There is a little too much luck for my taste. But this guy's pointing out that it's actually experienced players that do better. And I'll agree with that. Even though luck can mess you up in this game, if you know the game well, and especially if you know the cards in the game, you can purposely try to get through your hand if you can, and try to get more Palantir, use your Palantir results to go through your deck more quickly to get to certain cards that can be extremely powerful and exploit other things in the game. So the point is, this actually makes the point that it's not totally luck-based. It is. The dice can be very influential, but there are other things you can do that make a difference. And it's good to have a game where more experienced players can do better. In my opinion, I prefer games where more experience makes it to where you do better in the game. Otherwise, I would lose interest in playing because I don't think I'm ever going to get better. I mean, there are exceptions. There are some games that are not that way that I still really enjoy, but I like games that give me that, that chance to grow with the game as I learn more. The last one, take actions to destroy the One Ring Fellowship, or to hunt the Ring Bearer and conquer Middle-earth, Sauron. Plays 1, type thematic faux war game, a theme-driven game where you move military forces on a map, but where victory isn't intrinsically about conquest or destruction of enemies. True. Complexity, medium. Number of players, 2. Although technically I think it might be 4, but basically I agree it's 2. Playing time, He says, replayability, low. Once in a while is good enough. The strategy seems fairly straightforward, and the action dice will decide much of what you can do anyway. Okay, so far I agree with him that that's true. The strategy is fairly straightforward because there's very few ways to win, and you're forced to go for that overarching strategy. And yes, the action dice do kind of control you to a certain extent, but still, like I said before, the action dice, you still have some flexibility even once you've rolled of what you want to do. And sometimes cards can help you out. So the theme is strong, so those that like the theme will probably want to play more often. Now, there's no doubt about that. It's too long for what it is, though. Now, it is a long game. There's no doubt about it, so some people will definitely have a problem with that. He says, fun. Some fun. This looks fun to play with all the different miniatures on the large map. Rolling lots and lots of pretty dice is fun. The hunt for the One Ring is thematic fun. Summoning the Witch King to conquer Minas Tirith is fun for Sauron. Saying, fly you fools, when Gandalf sacrifices himself to save the Ring Bearer is fun. The fun is mostly in the theme and not so much in the game, though. Okay, well, I understand what he's getting at. The theme is a big part of it. If you took away the theme and it was just you have these people, you're trying to move this group of people over here and everyone else is just fighting and you're just rolling dice, that would take something away from the game. I'll admit that. Theme does contribute a lot to the awesomeness of the game. So, yeah, I'll agree to a large extent. There's still some fun underneath there that's not connected to the theme, but the theme adds a lot. But that's true of a lot of games, in my opinion. Theme helps games a lot. I would go as far as to say, take a Star Wars game. I'm not a big fan of Star Wars, but for people who like Star Wars, a Star Wars themed game becomes better. People like fantasy themes. That makes fantasy games more enjoyable for them. Some people don't like sci-fi, so they're less likely to play a sci-fi themed game. Theme matters. So it's not so much of a complaint to me to say that just because the theme is a lot of the fun, that is a bad thing. I mean, theme adds fun. It doesn't take away anything, it just adds, unless you just don't like the theme. Memorability, good. This lets the players retell the story of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yeah. Thematic integration, great. This is designed theme first, that's for sure. Components, great. Yeah, I agree. The different peoples of Middle-earth have different minis. There are lots and lots of minis. The Fellowship and Sauron minion minis are high quality and look great. Yes, I agree. The unique action dice are heavy and look great. Yes, they do. The components are certainly not functional, however. The minis are a pain to tell apart. They don't really fit in the map regions, and the map borders could be a lot clearer. The game is designed to look fantastic, functionality being a secondary concern. The same could be said for the rules. Okay, well, I guess I kind of agree with them. Sometimes there are too many units, but they have, I didn't mention this in my review, but there are little tokens. If you have a massive army in an area, you can use a token to represent that army, and you put that group of troops over to the side in a little rectangular section and use that tile to represent that army. So fit-wise, they have a solution for that. They obviously knew there was a problem, but also the board's huge and the miniatures are a reasonable size. So the fact that they don't fit is not really a fault of the game. I mean, they made the board massive already. You don't want it bigger. So, I mean, that would just go, that'd be too much. So, I mean, that's just one of those things. Now, finally, he says, who will like this? Lord of the Rings fans who enjoy heavy games. Very true. That is very true. So, most of what he says I agree with, I'd say. So, overall, hopefully this video has helped kind of give you a sense of what people don't like about this game. Maybe that'll help you decide if it's a game for you. Maybe you'll decide that you're okay with these issues and it doesn't bother you. Either way, I hope it was helpful. And if you don't think so, or if these videos are not quite giving you what you need, please leave down in the comments what your thoughts are. I'd appreciate that, any feedback. And in the future, please watch more of my videos. And if you have any recommendations of what else you might like to see, please do so. And I appreciate you very much. And y'all have a good day.